E salve, salve galera, iremos trazer mais um vídeo aqui para o canal. Mas antes, peço que vocês inscrevam-se no canal e deixem um like para nos ajudar. E galera, segundo um portal de notícias de futebol em inglês, o Liverpool enviou uma proposta oficial ao RB Leipzig pelo ponta marfinense Diomande, além de avançar nos termos pessoais com o meio-campista inglês Alex Costa do Bournemouth. Ambas as negociações ganharam força em junho de 2026, após a demissão de Arne Slot, a contratação do técnico Andoni Araola para o comando dos Reds. Então, galera, além dessas informações, o programa Talk Sport também trouxe aqui, um jornalista do programa deles trouxe informações sobre as negociações do Liverpool. Então vamos reagir aqui.
Hello and welcome to the window. Ben Jacobs. We are in West Hollywood at the moment. I've just returned from US men's national team training. First game against Friday for the US against Paraguay. More on that in due course, but this is the window, and I'm going to give you an update of all of the latest transfers. Only one place to start. Manchester City's latest Elliot Anderson bid is £106 million and 15 million in add-ons. Nottingham Forest are hoping for a British transfer record fee. Manchester City, I can tell you, remain optimistic. Now, whether this progresses or gets done before the World Cup starts for England remains to be seen. But Thomas Tuchel has said that players could, in theory, undergo medicals while on England duties. So Man City and Elliot Anderson remains one that we may get even more clarity on in due course. But what I can tell you is that Manchester City are optimistic. Manchester United are not currently inclined to bid for Elliot Anderson, even though he's a dream target. In fact, their number one target. Now, last year, the price was considered complicated and variable, and as I reported at the time, it was very contingent on Nottingham Forest and when they went down, and they were struggling at that point. But since they stayed up, Evangelos Marinakis in a stronger position, and Manchester United's perspective is really clear. They don't want to get involved in a bidding war. Now, that might sound strange to some Manchester United fans who are thinking, if he's number one target, why wouldn't you at least place a bid? But Man City have moved aggressively. They've hit a certain number already that Manchester United don't necessarily want to match. And the irony is, if Man United try, Forest get a bidding war, the price only rises further. Manchester United have held some talks on the player side, but Manchester City are optimistic, even though Nottingham Forest are still countering, and they want more money and a heavier weight on the overall package on the guaranteed fee. Now, Manchester City also like Sandro Tonali. We'll have to wait and see what Newcastle's position is when we get a bit further into the summer. Newcastle have already brought in money from Anthony Gordon. Tino Livramento could potentially go. Keep an eye there on Arsenal and Manchester City, and Lewis Hall and Manchester United is one to watch as well. I'm not so sure in the same way that Tonali and Guimaraes, likely one would only go if one goes. Probably the same for the two fullbacks at Newcastle United as well, Livramento or Hall. It'd be a big surprise if Newcastle decided to sanction both of those exits. And Newcastle still feel, even without European football, that they can spend some of their golden money, so it's not.
E para que o Liverpool possa contratar os dois, o Liverpool vai ter que desembolsar cerca de 140 milhões de libras, já que Ian custa 90 milhões de libras e Alex custa 50 milhões, galera. Esse é o valor.
About satisfying the books. There's also an element of Newcastle wanting to spend some of the Anthony Gordon money as well. Let's move on to Tottenham. They're going to be one of the busiest clubs along with Manchester United. I'll come on to Marcus Rashford for you in just a moment. But Spurs yesterday announcing Marcus Seneze 4-year contract. Andy Robertson already through the door. João Paulinho, discussions ongoing as to whether he's going to stay or go. Won't necessarily be around the clause specifically. It's more about Tottenham ignoring that and deciding to have their own negotiation with both the player and with Bayern, see whether anything is possible. And Tottenham are in the market regardless for a midfielder. It was announced also yesterday that Yves Bissouma is leaving the club on a free transfer. Ben Davies has signed a one-year deal, and the Slovenia talks continue as well. Manchester City are expecting Tottenham to make a formal bid. There's been verbal discussions at the moment. Now, last year, City were prepared to pay over 60 million, and some sources say 70 million. Ferran Soriano blocked the deal at board level, but since then, landscape's changed a little bit. Pep Guardiola has departed. Slovenia struggled with injuries last season, played, I think, 24 Premier League games, scored only once. So now maybe City's stance on a sale has softened somewhat. Tottenham could also be in the market for a number 9. They're one of the clubs that like Alex Scott. There are at least 4 other Premier League teams that have made inquiries. Manchester United is certainly one of them. Liverpool could be one to watch. Just a reminder, Arsenal are looking for a midfielder, whether in the 6 or the 8 position, possibly both, depending on outgoings too. Bournemouth are going to hold some talks with Alex Scott once he returns from this excellent experience with England, even though he didn't make the squad. And then they'll find out whether he's prepared to sign a new deal with a release clause. If not, the asking price for this summer, according to my information, is £80 million. Now, for Manchester United, Matheus Fernandes, also between £80 and £85 million is the ideal number that West Ham would like, but suitors still feel that price might drop. Arsenal have also looked. Real Madrid have made an inquiry now, and PSG, another club to watch too. So, of course, West Ham will welcome all of that interest because they'll feel that maybe they can get a bidding war, but that price is seen as quite high by a lot of the interested clubs, particularly Manchester United. But don't be
Trabalha com TI? A Atera pode deixar sua rotina muito mais simples. Tudo que o seu time de TI
surprised if a formal bid is incoming soon by Manchester United for Matheus Fernandes. They're like Alex Scott, Carlos Baleba on the list, all in Tchouaméni if anything becomes possible at Real Madrid. And Jose Mourinho now, he's part of the recruitment meetings. The incoming Real boss has been discussing initially, do they want a 6 like Rodri? Then Tchouaméni could change his perspective and so could Real Madrid, or do they want more like an 8, somebody perhaps like Enzo Fernandez? So a lot of big clubs are looking for central midfielders. A quick word on Marcus Rashford. The clause, 30 million option to buy for Barcelona, expires on the 15th of June. So time is ticking there. Barca is saying for now they're not going to trigger that clause and that Rashford has to be braced to return to pre-season training. Man United still want to sell, and even though Rashford could be part of pre-season whilst they resolve his situation, make no mistake, Manchester United want a starting left winger or attacker. Iliman Ndiaye, Morgan Rogers, 2 of the candidates at the moment. Yan Diomande seen as too expensive. Liverpool and PSG seem to be the clubs that are motoring as far as that particular saga is concerned. But there is a chance that Barcelona, who haven't given up on signing Rashford, end up striking a deal. It will all depend on Manchester United and how firm they are to this 30 million euros or nothing. And if they're still firm, if the clause comes off the table, Barca's leading preference is to do Rashford on another season-long loan with some form of either option to buy or more likely conditional obligation. Manchester United since January have said no to that and just repeatedly pointed to the 30 million euros clause. There is a halfway house, of course, where maybe if Barca can just get Rashford cheaper than 30 million euros, they might be prepared to sign permanently now. And yet Manchester United are kind of scoffing at the lower valuations that Barcelona have tried, because 30 million euros is already below Rashford's market valuation. Quick word on Kieran McKenna as well. Great servant to Ipswich, got them promoted to the Premier League. He's left. And the expectation, as per a club statement, is that Kieran McKenna will not dive into another job. He wants to spend time with his family. Fulham had McKenna as a leading candidate, and they were hopeful over the last kind of few days or weeks when it became apparent that Marco Silva was going to Benfica, that McKenna would be prepared to join, and they were weighing up paying his release clause as a result. But McKenna has communicated to both Fulham and, of course, Ipswich first that he wants to stand down for family reasons, and we mustn't forget that.
Galera, eu vou pedir novamente aqui para que vocês inscrevam-se no canal e deixem o like.
Managers not infallible. Managers are not people that just support the team that fans do. They're human beings. McKenna feels that he wants to step away for a little bit. And Gary O'Neill, the Strasbourg boss, is one contender there. Liam Rosinia is another. Fulham are finalising their shortlist at the moment and going back to several candidates that maybe they put the back burner on when they thought that things might progress with McKenna. Arbeloa at Real Madrid, the departed manager, is one name on the shortlist. Another is Abel Ferreira, the Palmeiras manager. Frank Lampard could still be one to watch, even though Coventry are relatively confident that he'll stay at the football club. And Hugo Oliveira, the ex-coach to Marco Silva, so very familiar with Fulham, is certainly a name that made the shortlist too. So let's see what direction Fulham choose to go in. So the market's hotting up. Remember, the window hasn't actually opened, but plenty of deals can be either agreed or all but agreed. Last word on Ederson as well. He was called up to the Brazil squad, so that medical could potentially be delayed, although again, in theory, it could be undertaken whilst he's on international duty. But Man United are calm about that situation and happy to formalise the deal as soon as Brazil go out of the World Cup, or if they win it once the World Cup ends. But Ederson to Manchester United is a done deal, and at least one more midfielder, if not two, will follow. So that's it from the window. Thanks so much for following along. As ever, I'm live here in Hollywood in the sweltering heat. I'm not sure I'll do a window where I won't have these sunglasses on, and I don't think that I'm going to tan either. I'm just going to go straight to Lobster Red from Vampire Pale. But thanks very much for watching, and we'll be back again every single...
Galera, e vamos trazer mais informações sobre os jogadores que o Liverpool é interessado. O jovem atacante Costa Marfins, nascido em 2006, é um dos talentos mais cobiçados do futebol europeu. O valor estipulado, como eu já informei, é de 90 milhões de libras, com preço fixado em 100 milhões. Principais interessados no jogador: Liverpool, Manchester United, PSG e Bayern de Munique. Agora sobre Alex Scott, do Burnham. O meio-campista inglês de 22 anos tem sido alvo constante de grandes clubes da Premier League, como Manchester United e Liverpool. Valor estipulado também, como eu informei, 50 milhões de libras. A avaliação do clube para a venda seria em torno de 80 milhões, equivalente a 94 milhões. Clubes monitorando também: Tottenham, Aston Villa, Arsenal, Chelsea, além de dos citados. E esse foi o vídeo que eu trouxe hoje, galera. Espero que você tenha gostado. Se você gostou, deixa o like no vídeo e inscreva-se no canal.